Good evening and welcome to everybody that's online. We'll get started. My name is Justin Gauci and I'll be hosting tonight's webinar where we'll be covering off the topic chasing opportunities and the pros and cons of moving overseas for financial gain. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, I do have to cover off a slight disclosure. Okay, a disclaimer here that the presentation is provided for information purposes only. The content is not intended as a substitute for regulated financial advice. Okay, so everything's going to be general in nature. There'll be some statistics in here around the medians and averages, etc. There's always going to be your specific scenario, which may mean performing above or below some of these statistics. So just make sure you are taking that information out of today as general in nature. And if you want to get to the bottom of your own individual scenario, that you are meeting with a registered financial advisor to make sure you're making the best steps forward. A little bit about myself. As I was saying, my name's Justin Gauci. As you can probably already tell, I am Australian, so don't hold that against me. Born and raised in Melbourne. I moved over to New Zealand with my partner Elise in 2020, to raise our 3 kids. And before that, I've had over 10 years experience in the corporate finance sector in Melbourne, London, and here in New Zealand. I had the pleasure of joining the Enable Me family a few years back, where now I use those skill sets and my experience to help Kiwis get ahead with their financial situations and making sure that they're getting, their finances under control and getting their retirement ready or getting their financial goals ticked off at the right pace. What we'll be covering off tonight, well, here's a few of the things that we will be looking to learn from today's slides. Okay, what are some of those pros and cons of moving overseas? Some of the misconceptions. Okay, there's a lot of headlines out there about, what it's like moving to Australia, for example, giving you some of that perspective of what it's like on the other side. Okay, we sometimes tend to see and hear just one side of the story. So making you aware of a few things that are happening that you might not be aware of, some of the key differences between the two countries, whether that's tax differences, etc., some of the super net pays, what it's like, the housing market from Australia to here. We'll cover off all that in a bit more detail. Some of the levers that you can pull to get ahead wherever you are, okay, understanding what that means in a bit more detail. Working with your tendencies to understand what financial success looks like. Okay, so this isn't going to be all about a cookie cutter approach. You're going to hear that many times throughout this. You need a plan that's designed for your financial goals and building a strategy around that rather than having something just given to you. Okay, it really has to be something that intrinsically you believe in and you can actually achieve. No point setting yourself up for failure before we get started. Thanks for those of you who have submitted some questions in advance. We've got some great Q&A at the end. There's also a Q&A box that you can pop your questions into, and if we have a bit of time at the end, I'd love to get through as many of those as possible. Some of it might be covered off as well in the slide deck as we go through this. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye on where we're at for time and what the questions are like. And what I want to sort of start with is a poll for those of you who are on here. What is the biggest reason you might be wanting to move overseas? Now, there's no all of the above option on here. So the first thing that comes to your mind, or the thing that resonates most with you from the 5 options on here, just, should be a poll box that's popped into your Zoom window. Just go with that. We'll give it about 30 or so seconds to see what we're looking at. Okay, and as you sort of see here, there's the key one that I'm really, really going to delve most into, and I don't want to sort of give it away too much, but realistically is the 4th option there, D. Let's have a look what sort of come through. Okay, we'll give it maybe another 10 seconds, or I think that might be the final one. My producer is telling me, and yeah, half of you are answering that D. So I sort of did jump into thinking it'd be that way. For the other half of you that have answered A, B, C, or E, look, that's a great personal choice, and I'm a big proponent of moving abroad. I've done it many times myself. It probably is the right thing to do if you're moving for that better weather or to experience something new, or to be, closer to family, of course. Better job opportunities, do your research is probably my response for B. Okay, just making sure that you're fully aware what the market's doing, wherever it is you're looking to to move to. And for the 50% of you that did answer D, okay, we'll be covering that off in a lot more detail tonight in the rest of these slides, because spoiler alert, it might not be what you're thinking just looking at headlines that you see on the news or headlines from Stuff or NZ Herald at the moment. Okay, so we want to get into a bit more detail on that stuff in the coming slides. A little bit of a look at where it's been. Okay, where has it been for the last financial years? 52,500 NZ citizens left the country in that period of time. Okay, that's an unprecedented spike in departures. We've never seen it as big as it was. It's a huge leap. On average, it tends to float around the 10 to 12,000 mark. There's been the occasional dip years where it's in the 20s and 30s, high 30K range, but 52,500 in a single year is massive. Now, some of this could be a post-COVID correction. Okay, it could be delayed OEs while the borders were sort of closed in that 2020 to 2022 period. So there's a little bit of a watch this space of what it looks like next March. But yeah, it definitely ramped up in the year ending 31st of March 2024. The ASB senior economist Mark Smith said recently that the Kiwis are not getting ahead, so they're looking offshore and just thinking, why not? You know, this sentiment's driving many people to look offshore. What we want to do tonight and ongoing is making sure that you're aware of what you can achieve before you uproot your life and move somewhere else, okay? Because that's a big commitment and big move to make. And for half of you that answered, you're doing it purely for a number reason, okay? And it may work out or it may not, but we want to make sure you're armed with the right amount of information to do so, because what is driving it is a lot of that financial sentiment, okay? The wave of migration is connected to some further stats you'll see on this next slide around how tough people are feeling it out there. We're feeling the pinch, okay? These numbers coming from sort of Financial Resilience Index, Westpac, and a MediaWorks survey, they're pretty grim reading. You know, 37% of Kiwis are saying their finances are negatively affecting their financial or their general well-being. It's over 1 in 3 people that is walking around stressed, anxious, or losing sleep because of money. So it's time to take back control of that stress and not just looking externally to think a magic wand will solve that. Nearly half the people are a bit uncertain about the economy. Now, when this survey was taken, might have been a few months back. Okay, it might be a little bit different now as the OCR and inflation is starting to improve. But nearly 100% of people are concerned about the cost of living. It's not just something that's in the headlines there, it's real. We're feeling it on a day-to-day basis in our wallets. Okay, and that last one there, living paycheck to paycheck, is more common than it's not. Just let that sink for a second. More than 1 in 2 people are living, whether it's week to week, fortnight to fortnight, or month to month. It doesn't have to be that way if you've got the right financial strategies behind you. You can break that cycle now and build a bit of a buffer for the future so you don't, get stuck in webs of short-term debts, etc. The bottom line is these stats show that there is real financial stress around in New Zealand right now. It doesn't have to be your story though. Okay, I work with many clients and a lot of our coaches do here at Enable Me that are modest earners that can still get ahead even when there's headwinds pushing against them. We're starting to see the tide turn, inflation get back under control. It's great time to be making headwinds when we're getting ahead when we've got the sales and wind behind us. And that's what you can do by having a good strategy in place. Another sort of sobering statistic here is over 1.5 million Kiwis can't come up with $5,000 in an emergency without either going into debt, whether it's on a credit card or a hire purchase on something that's got terrible interest rates. Okay, for my clients, building a buffer is key. Their first step when they work with me is to get to 3 months worth of living expenses on call. Okay, and once you've got that, we don't stop there. We want to build that up to 6 months of living expenses because life is unpredictable. Okay, and having that buffer gives you a peace of mind, gives you that safety net, so you're not one emergency away from being stuck into short-term debts, which can be like being in quicksand. They spiral on top of each other. okay? And that's never the way to get financial progress. And if you've got that here, if that's your way of your strategy for how to deal with life's unexpected, moving overseas isn't going to be that silver bullet. There'll be new unexpected things that will pop up. Okay, so you need to make sure you've got the right frameworks in place that if you are making that move, you're doing it in the best way possible. Now, look, the temptation's real. We can't deny that. There's headlines everywhere. There's job pitches from different governments across Australia that are trying to poach us over to Australia. And you can see why people are getting tempted to make that switch. One thing I would just say is watch the fine print on some of the job offers or things you might be seeing, okay? Because the take-home pay and the total package are not the same thing in Australia. In Australia, they have compulsory super. It's 11.5% currently. It's going up to 12% next year. Now, don't get me wrong, super's great. It's great for when you're 67. You know, a lot of Australians are going to have great nest eggs of super when they come to retirement age. But if you're moving in your 20s, 30s, early 40s, potentially, you're not moving for what life's going to be rosy when you're 67. You're moving probably for the now. Okay, I might be generalizing a little bit here. For the half of you that answered you're moving or you're thinking about moving for financial reasons, you're likely doing it because the pinch is real right now. So if you're lured across for a package that's saying 100K, well, realistically, 12 of it is going to super. Okay, now there are some job ads that say plus super, and there's some that are saying including super. So you really need to make sure you look at the fine print of what that job offer actually looks like. Understand what the tax situation's like in Australia. Okay, it might be higher than you think. Just depends again what your earning is. Another common thing that Kiwis know about working in Australia is that Aussies can claim a heap back at tax time. Okay, now again, great. Maybe getting a $3,000 or $4,000 tax return in July or August. But if you're making that move, you're probably making it for the here and now, fortnight or week to week or month to month. So getting all that tax back in August doesn't make the here and now pain that you're in a cost of living crisis feel any better, getting that sugar rush then. And to be honest, and I might talk about this in a bit more detail later, if you don't have great money habits, when you get that big cash injection from a good tax return, if you don't have good money habits, it's very, very likely that it gets just blown on something else. So that's the big question. You know, how much will your net pay actually change when you factor in super and taxes? And yeah, it's very common for us to look over there. Okay, one thing I've noticed since moving from Australia is the fact that we spend a lot of time looking over there at what's happening there. And I talk about this in a bit more detail later on, is the true path to success is internalizing things a little bit more. Okay, don't just look externally for that silver bullet to get ahead. And yeah, it's very common to think, oh, it's just better over there. Well, being over there recently, visiting family and friends, and it's not too different. And I'll share a little bit of insight into that in a bit more detail. So is moving the best way to solve your financial problem? Well, I might be leaning towards no already from what I know further on in the slides and the research and all the stuff I've done. But let's take a look at some more numbers and some more detail around things, okay? Here we're comparing net pay in Australia on the left. I've converted it, so we're comparing apples and apples into New Zealand dollars, okay? And I've taken what the average annual gross salary is in Australia to convert it back into a net monthly pay, and then converted that into New Zealand dollars and compared the same on the right in New Zealand. In short, on paper, Aussies are earning a lot more. It's about 33%, if my math was correct. Now, the gap is closing a little bit. I was listening to something on the radio last week that we're in the construction and infrastructure sectors. That gap is starting to close. But it's, I guess, more than what's coming in. We need to understand what's going out. So if Aussies are earning $1,700 or $1,600 a month more, well, they should be smashing it then, shouldn't they? That's what using that income metric to define success alone would tell us. Yet reality is it's not always greener on the other side. They've got more money, but same problems. Why is this happening? Well, if they're earning more, and in some cities, housing can be cheaper, yet Australians are still struggling. Well, the truth in the matter is more income doesn't always equal more financial success if you haven't got your solid foundations and money habits under control. You just got the same problems in a different postcode. I've seen it firsthand myself. I was over there, as I was saying, last month. Got friends and families that, earning pretty well compared to what the equivalents would be here, but they're feeling the same pressures. They're still feeling stuck and they can't get ahead. Okay, so where's all that extra money going? It's not going into a savings account because people are talking about a cost of living crisis there. Same thing's happening in the UK. It's in the US at the moment. One of the big hot topics through this election cycle is the cost of living crisis. So we're not alone with these problems here. And I guess the other aspect on top of the money aspect is, let's not forget, if you're moving to Australia, you've got to put up with 26 million more Australians. But on a serious note, what does that actually mean? Well, one thing I've noticed since moving here is some of that work-life balance is a little bit different over there too. It's a different game in some of the bigger cities. The 9-to-5 lifestyle that we have here in New Zealand and the 9-to-5 lifestyle in Australia are not exactly the same. There's a lot more competitive job market and there's a lot more pressures that are put onto people to do that little bit more, okay? And yeah, that may really excite you depending on where you're at with your stage of life and whatnot, but it can be quite a big culture shock for people. I know myself, having moved from Melbourne to London, that was a culture shock with just how ruthless and cutthroat it was. Then moving back here to New Zealand and feeling how laid back it was, then moving back to Melbourne and working over there for a couple of years, it was again another culture shock to be like, wow, it is a little bit more cutthroat and ruthless. Not just trying to win any brownie points with anyone on the call. I think in general, Kiwis tend to be nicer. I'm not going to win any Aussie friends that might be on the call listening to this, but it is a culture shock when you're over there. People are a little bit more cutthroat and ruthless. And again, that might be great and that might suit you, but these intangibles are certainly things you've got to take into account. And not to mention, forget about if you're moving to anywhere probably outside of certain parts of New South Wales and Queensland, forget about having any office chat about the Super Rugby or the NPC. It's like me trying to talk Aussie rules over here. They won't get it. And these things will just take those little hidden tolls on you. The ease of finding, your favorite bacon, egg pie or Vogels, all those little bits and pieces, those comforts of home, they'll be gone. Okay, so you've just got to think about these things. Aussies are already finding it tough. Well, what's it going to be like for an expat moving over there with maybe not much of a support network around them? Now, a big hot topic is always housing. Wherever you go, up and down the country here, over there in Australia, it's the hot topic. On the right here, we've got a bit of a OECD comparison, okay, and both countries are pretty neck and neck. That's the house price to income ratio in 2023, both above the OECD average. Now, country averages, they can be a little bit misleading. They will include areas that are quite rural or less populated where you might not be thinking of moving to. Now, if you are on today's webinar and thinking about moving over to a rural town and you've got sort of accommodation supplements and they're really struggling for workers and they're paying a real premium, then yeah, you are going to get ahead massively. But for those of you that are moving from a city to a city, that's what the data on the left is starting to talk about, is comparing the 5 most populated cities in both countries and how they stack up. Now, Sydney takes the crown as the most expensive city, okay? Wellington and Auckland, not too far behind, okay? Then you look at Christchurch and it's outperforming most Australian cities on all metrics. Even Tauranga's holding its own there. So coming back to that thing around understanding your specific situation is really key. It does depend where you're moving to. If you're moving from Auckland to Melbourne, Auckland to Adelaide, yeah, likely is going to be cheaper for you housing as a percentage of your income. But if you're moving from Christchurch to there, well, it's likely you're not. Okay. The other little part of statistics and some headlines you might hear from friends, who a friend of a friend or a family member that's moved over there, is you might see some housing in some cities like Melbourne or Sydney that are really, really cheap. 500-600K, nice block of land and 3-4 bedroom house. Some of those cities are quite large in space, and they might be 40 plus Ks from the city centre. Okay. How does that commute stack up for you compared to what you're used to? Now, public transport, depending on where you are in the country, here in New Zealand, may be good, may be terrible. And you may have gone on holidays to Melbourne or to Brisbane or Sydney and thought the public transport's amazing. But you've probably been staying either in the city or in the inner ring, where it is amazing. Okay, I can speak now, again, back to lived experience in Melbourne. It's great, but that's not where those cheap 4-bedroom houses are. They're on the outskirts, where it's 40 Ks away, where you might be stop number 26 on a train line into the city. So that might be over an hour on a train every day. How does that stack up for you? Okay, and that's the little bits that, again, if you don't dig into the detail behind it and just take the headline number of, oh wow, it's great, I can buy a $600,000 house in Melbourne, then you get there and your work's on the other side of town, might take you 2 hours to get to work. How's that going to work for you? And your financial well-being, great, but how's your mental well-being going to go? So look, when we look at the city averages here, not too dissimilar, okay, when you just group the whole lot. So if Aussies are earning 30% more than us and their housing stacks up on par, maybe a little bit cheaper in some aspects, maybe a little bit more expensive, where's the money going? Oh, jump back a slide. The temptations are real and tenfold over there. There's more to do. Okay, and here's where I might win some of my Aussie friends on the call back. There is a lot more to do in those Australian cities. It's pretty topical at the moment. A lot of world acts not coming over to New Zealand. They're on your doorstep. You're more likely to go, aren't you? If there's more events on at the moment in both Melbourne and Sydney, spring racing, captures the cities. You're more likely to go than you are the meets that might be in your city here in New Zealand right now or at other parts of the year. Sporting events, again, putting my bias Melbourne hat on, being the sporting capital of the world, the city embraces that title, and everybody becomes, or again, maybe not everybody, but the city buzz gets behind whatever's on, whether it's a Formula One Grand Prix, whether it's the concerts, whether it's the Melbourne Cup coming up, whether it's AFL season. It just captures the place like nothing does here in New Zealand, outside of potentially the All Blacks in a World Cup. Think about the All Blacks playing in a World Cup on your doorstep nearly every week, and how much more likely you are to spend that money. It's not just the events though. As I was saying, it's the electric atmosphere. It's the options you've got with different restaurant options. A lot of this might be new for you too, so you're more likely to try things for the first time and embrace those new experiences, which is great. Don't get me wrong, love it myself when I'm over there. But again, for that 50% of you that have answered that you're moving to get financially ahead, this is where it all could go wrong for you. You move with an intention to get financially ahead and you go nowhere. There's social pressures to keep up. It's hard when you're moving over somewhere to say no to try new things, and that's probably needed to settle in. But again, it's important to stay grounded and remember that what are you moving for, and making sure that you know how you achieve your goals. And if your goal is financial improvement, well, how can you make best of your situation when you're here before you go, and then when you're there, making sure that you're not sort of getting stuck. There are some hidden costs that I'll let sit there on the screen for just a second. And these are things that I talk to clients about that are planning a move over there, and they might be great at their budget. They know where their money's going. There's some extras that they need to consider. what childcare and babysitting costs might look like, and schooling and after school care. If you are moving without that family network behind you, it might be easy to get nan and pop to pick the kids up from school. That might need to be after school care. Might have a wedding or a work event that normally your brother or your sister might be able to look after the kids. That might be a babysitter cost. More opportunities to explore, sort of in line with what I was saying earlier around new restaurants to try, more options on your Uber Eats app. But also think about some of the travel things in terms of, the Great Barrier Reef, think Bali, amazing places. But maybe we need to factor in a bit more of a holiday budget when we're over there than what you're used to when you're living in New Zealand. I know myself, even moving from Australia to here, it's just something for people once they move to a new place. I think when you're in your home, you might take it for granted a little bit. So you might need that bit more of a holiday budget. I know with my partner, I get more excited about traveling around New Zealand than potentially she does. So yeah, factoring that into what a budget could look like. The social costs, as I was saying, of building a network. Okay, making friends is free, but building a network often isn't. Whether that's joining clubs or dining out more, these social costs might be more. You might be not set in your ways, but used to what's around you when you're here in New Zealand and you're wherever it is. Being somewhere new, yeah, it is going to ramp up that spending. Big one is travel costs to visit family back in New Zealand. So I touched on a little bit earlier, holidays. This is where your holiday budget almost needs to be thought of in two ways. There's the actual holidays, and then there's the trips back home, whether you're missing home or you might have a sibling wedding, best friend's wedding, whoever it is, etc. You need to factor in that into your budget for probably a semi-regular basis, but also sometimes the things that are less fun, family health matters, funerals, etc., that you need to attend to. The flights flights anywhere, obviously the last few years of the costs have ramped right up. Now, those ones like funerals and those family health matters, keep in mind that those flights, they're obviously necessary. Don't get me wrong, like 100% you need to be there for family, etc. in those times. They'll come up unexpectedly. So any, planning around sale fares, etc., you might have to, go on a whim and just get the most expensive next flight back. Okay, so could that look like? Do you have enough buffers in place to get you and your family back to New Zealand quite quickly? The different tax structures and super I've already sort of touched on. The tax structure is key to things because you need to understand what that net pay is. Some of the things I've talked about earlier, and even if you are over there long enough on the housing side of things and you are buying, you need to be aware of what stamp duty is and what capital gains tax is. These are things that I've grown up with and might feel like second nature to me, but feel completely foreign to you. Yes, if I put it into a sporting landscape, the tax system to me might feel like a game of Aussie rules. The Australian tax system, when I came here, it's like rugby. You've got no idea what's going on. It's complex and ever changing. So you need to make sure you understand your obligations so you can save yourself from any unnecessary penalties or surprises that could come up. The medical system, okay, there is pretty good public health over there in Australia, but making sure that you know what's covered and what's not, what private sort of health cover systems are like over there. Just research your options, okay? And it is then, again, one of those things at tax time that gets added on to your tax bill. Another thing, dot point that's not on the screen right now is if you're moving over there before you've got your job, you've also got to make sure you've got the buffers in place for however long that might be to find the job, okay? And as I was saying before, competitive job markets in Australia, pretty low unemployment rates, competing in cities with maybe 5, 6, 10 times the amount of population from where you've come from. Understanding what that length of time is if you are moving before landing that job, you need to have really, really solid foundations behind you. Having more money doesn't always translate to more progress. I'll give you a real life example, obviously unnamed clients that I've worked with. Got clients that live literally 3 streets away from each other, similar-ish incomes. One couple a little bit more, family of 4, who told me they need to spend $900 a week on food to feed their family. A few streets over, another couple earning a little bit less, family of four, 550, 600 would cut it on a splurge week and would regularly spend off 500 on average. So it's not about what these families earned. What family A is spending $20,000 a year to do the same thing family B is doing. Okay, so and what has happened to, I guess, to family A, the more they've earned, they've just seen that lifestyle creep. The need isn't really a need, it's a want, but it's hard to unpack and unwind those bad habits. As I was saying before, Australians are feeling the pinch too. Don't think crossing the ditch magically solves your money problems. Even Australians earning those higher incomes are feeling that squeeze. So you've got to make sure you're in order, whether it's moving to Australia or even in London, or anywhere in the UK. Post-Brexit, I've got friends that are still over there. It's a great place for adventure, and Europe's on your doorstep, etc. But it's not as easy as it once was over there, where everything was cheap and you earn quite well. But it comes back to the thing: you can't outrun bad money habits. Okay, they'll follow you no matter where you go, and a different experience is great. But if you're doing it for financial gain, well, if you've got bad money habits in place here, they're just going to be worse habits that you come back with. So what gets you ahead faster? Well, it's the person looking back at you in the mirror each morning. Okay, you are the way to get forward. It's your mindset. If you externalize issues all the time, it means those same things are going to just creep back into your life when you're overseas and stifle any progress you might be making over there, or think you might make over there, because there's many Australians that are doing that right now too. Okay, and it comes back to, as I was saying, mindset. And what we might have heard this term before, abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset. You don't want to bring a scarcity mindset with you wherever you go in life, whether that's moving abroad or your current situation at home. Moving overseas will just lead, with that scarcity mindset, will just lead to the same financial struggles. You're blaming external factors for your financial situation now. Well, yeah, sure, for the first few weeks when you go to the supermarket and you see something that little bit less, it's going to be great. But slowly that mindset and your habits will creep back in, and you won't make the progress that you should be or could be. Because reality check, there's a lot of Australians with a scarcity mindset too. Okay. And they're experiencing those financial challenges, and they're held back by that same scarcity mindset and mentality. And they shouldn't be. And that could be you too. When you get that extra in pay, if you don't have the right mindset behind you, well, you're not going to make the most of any opportunities. You're not going to seize them. You're not going to even see them present themselves. I guess a good anecdote for it's people with a scarcity mindset. It's just like anyone after a sporting event blaming the ref for a loss. Okay, it's time to stop making excuses and look internally for some of this stuff. And that's the way to I guess, make full progress and embrace that abundance mindset. Okay, it's what can I control? How can I grow? Shift your focus from obstacles to opportunities. And that's going to be the key to your financial success. Now, what is your mindset shaped by? Okay, it's these things that are here on the screen right now. Your upbringing experiences, they can shape you, but your mindset isn't set in stone. Okay, you can always evolve and change and mature over time, and so can our money mindset. In our early years, as a teenager or in our early 20s, I'm speaking in personally here, you can often blame external forces when things don't go our way, whether it's money or just anything in life. Again, going back to sport, if I was to ask myself as an 18-year-old after a bad game, was it my fault, or what was the reason for it? More often than not, it was that teammate didn't do this, or the ref missed this, or whatever. Now I think about myself as a late 30s coach on the sidelines, and the things I'm telling my team not to focus on is exactly what I was doing. And the same stuff happens with money mindset, okay? Blaming others and not taking that responsibility is going to hold you back. Now, your friends and culture can influence your financial gain. And I guess the thing here is when you surround yourself with people that bring you up, you mold yourself off them and you get energy from it. And if you, I guess, are with people who are reckless with money, it can seep into your way of life. Now, you obviously can't always surround yourself with people who are disciplined and doing the best all the time. As you say, you can't choose your family. If you identify that some people that are really important to you in your life don't have some of these undesirable traits, make sure you just acknowledge that. You don't have to have that terrible conversation with them, but acknowledge that that's what they are doing and learn ways to not let it infiltrate into your approach. Okay, don't sort of get into that pity party that often people can get into. Acknowledge it, nod, be friendly, be courteous with it, but don't let it become and bring you down and stop you from getting the best out of yourself. Okay. Now, the other thing is what worked for you 5-10 years ago or what works for you now might not work in 5-10 years. These habits and beliefs need to be molded to your situation at any given time as we obviously grow and our scenarios change. Now on the screen here are 3 myths that I guess I hear all the time and other financial advisors would hear on a regular basis. That first one there, we've sort of debunked that myth already, haven't we? I need to earn more. Well, Australians are earning 30% more. They've got a cost of living crisis. So how does that mean it's going to be easier if you just earn more? No. Aussies are earning more. They've got a cost of living crisis. Why? Well, that lifestyle creep that they're used to is the majority of that. Okay. And if you don't have good habits behind you, that'll follow you. Need to have a lot of money for a financial plan? Well, a great financial plan isn't one size fits all. It's got to be tailored to your situation, no matter that starting point. You'd be surprised what you can achieve with the right guidance. Okay. And the last one here, I just got to wait till this or that. Waiting for perfect conditions means you're probably never going to get started. The best time to take action is always now, because progress beats perfection every time. You know, as the old saying goes, the best time to plant that tree was yesterday, second best time, today. You can't wait around for perfect all the time. You've just got to get sorted and get started. A little bit of a visual here of what tends to be the example of a Kiwi mortgage mindset. Okay, we sort of stay in that scarcity mindset and we accept that long road to mediocrity. Okay, that's what that is on the screen right there. Is if we're 45 and we're getting mortgage free at 65, that's not going to be a great retirement. You know, we're just getting mortgage free just before we should be, kicking back and relaxing. Living paycheck to paycheck. That's not a strategy. That's just survival mode. Okay, you need to focus on what's possible and not just being sort of drowning in what's happening. You've got to actually take that helicopter view of what you can achieve, because if we just rely on KiwiSaver alone, as the green arrow is showing there, it's not going to be a great relaxing retirement. It's going to be a rationing sort of retirement. We might be a burden to our family or our kids, which none of us want to do. We're working hard. So what is the strategies we can do to improve that? And an example of what we want to do with our clients is improve that. Why take 20 years to do something if you could do it in 10? Abundance thinkers don't waste time blaming others. They ask, what can I do differently to speed up or improve the process? It's about taking control of the wheel instead of just sitting in that passenger seat. In this example here, freeing up your mortgage earlier gives you the opportunity to build wealth for retirement. Okay, there's no room for excuses or blame. It's just focusing forward on what's next. And you'll realize things quicker the faster you get started. The faster you get started, the faster you can build wealth for the retirement that you deserve. Okay, because it's all about seeing that potential and not just being in that scarcity mindset. Okay, shift the narrative away from I can't because to what can I do now? What can I do with what I have? It's internalizing the power to create more rather than waiting for the perfect moment all the time, and flipping the switch from a survival mode to a thrive mode. Okay, we want to break free of, I guess, being stuck as a hamster on the wheel in that graph earlier. Okay, we want to enjoy, we've worked hard for that enjoyable retirement. We need to get started at the soonest time possible. So what is the answer? Well, I guess the tip there is it's not all about money. Okay, it's not about, the money or income. It's focusing on the fundamentals, and your true financial success starts with a solid foundation, not just a bigger paycheck. Okay, we've already seen Aussies are getting that bigger paycheck, but they're worried about money just as much, if not more. So addressing your mindset and behaviors can really optimize your financial health. Make the most of what you already have and then build wealth from there. It's mindset over money, and it's really understanding your money personality to get the best habits behind you, because your ability to achieve goals isn't tied to how much you earn, but it's how effectively you manage what you have. So what does it look like? Well, these 4 things here on the screen, any of our clients that are on the call will vouch, one of the first things they see. It's understanding those money habits. Okay, that's the foundations that are the cornerstone of everything. We've got to set goals, okay, and they can't just be the end goal. We need little bite-sized goals along the way. Think of it as, your GPS coordinates with money. We don't want to drive around aimlessly, getting lost all the time. Okay, we need to push forward and know what we need to achieve. Cash flow is king at the end of the day. It might be boring, but it is more money left over gives us more options. Okay, think about if you went into the supermarket without a list, terrible cash flow management. You'll always walk out with that little bit more than you need to. If you do have a mortgage, how do you structure that effectively to get ahead? What are the strategies? Sort of sick of hearing about the OCR and what it's always doing, because that's externalizing. That's playing in that scarcity mindset of giving the ownership to things that you can't control. You need to be able to get ahead as it's getting easier now at the right rate. Because let me tell you, when things were in the 2s, people weren't, and 3% interest rates, people weren't getting ahead on their mortgage like they should have been. Okay, so when it gets difficult, well, what are the strategies so we can get ahead regardless of what the OCR is doing? And then again, with our Kiwi savers, it's not on the screen there, it's the next layer down from that. Want to make sure all this money is we're working hard, our money's working as hard for us as possible too in the background. Here at Enable Me, we've identified 3 sort of loose money personalities: a shopper, saver, and a plotter. Okay, it's just, there's no right or wrong to this stuff. It's understanding you and what motivates and drives you. Many couples that come to us more often than not have one of, whether it's a shopper and a saver. Plotter's a little bit of an in-between there. Shoppers get their enjoyment out of spending money. Obviously, it doesn't have to be lavish items, doesn't have to be Louis Vuitton or Gucci handbags. It's just the act of spending they get joy out of. Savers, it's the opposite. Okay, they get heart palpitations when the wallet comes out. We need to be able to make sure we're tailoring a plan suited to your personality, because if we set the wrong one, we're not going to be able to stick to it, are you? It's got to be what's best and what's right for you. An approach to risk is key on this, and it's somewhat linked into these money personalities. But we've got people here that, they could be any of these 3. There's, again, no wrong answer for this stuff. Your risk tolerance will impact the strategy that we need to and how we motivate you to achieve your goals. Whether you're cautious, bold, or optimistic, understanding that risk profile helps us craft a plan that suits you, and finding balance is key. So safety wardens, they're slow and steady, but sometimes too safe. They won't take unnecessary risk, great, but they might also miss out on some growth opportunities. So they might need to just learn how to be comforted to get out of their comfort zone. Adventurers, look, they can be high risk and high reward. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, the old saying is. The important part here is making sure they've got a good team around them. Whether it's an entrepreneur seeking advice from seasoned investors or an athlete relying on a coach, having experts guide people, whether financial decisions, helps them, take those risks, but make sure that they're well calculated and not reckless risks. And then our dreamers, they often hope for the best, but they're not taking the actions, okay? They can get left stuck waiting for the universe to deliver rather than taking control. Now, the great thing about dreamers is they have the intent, but financial success requires intent and action, not just hope, okay? So we need to unlock the action with a dreamer. So how does this all influence financial success? Well, knowing and doing aren't the same thing, are they? We all know we should save more or pay down our mortgage, but we need to know the strategies of how. It's like knowing that what a good workout looks like. But if we don't take action and have a gym membership, well, what's the point of it? Without action, knowledge just sits there unused. We need to understand what motivates us to get up and do the right thing. And that's where your money personality and working through how to get motivated in this on a consistent basis is the most important thing. As we said before, earning more, that couple before, think of them like pouring consistently water into a bucket with a heap of holes in it. It doesn't matter. The water's just going to trickle out faster, isn't it? So yeah, some of my clients with modest incomes are building better financial futures for themselves than some higher earners out there, because they're using their resources more wisely. And at the end of the day, as I was saying before, we don't want it to be cookie cutter. It's the same approach for every single person out there. We need to nurture the right tendencies and curb the bad ones. Whether it's the need to nurture, I guess, the saver's discipline, or rein in a shopper's impulse, or vice versa, where we've got to, I guess, motivate a saver to take action. It's got to come down to, again, what is right for you. There's no right or wrong money personality or risk profile. Because we believe that this stuff on the screen, we go back to knowing versus doing. It comes down to this: behavior drives success more than just a plan. You can have the best financial strategy in the world, but if your habits don't support it, the plan won't work. Warren Buffett says it best with this: the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. It's about creating consistent, healthy financial habits that support long-term success. It's not about 4 weeks of living off, 2-minute noodles and not buying anything or doing anything, and then splurging out because it was too hard to maintain. It's got to be the right strategy that you can consistently work to, because that 20% strategy only works if you're getting 80% consistency. So again, a lot of numbers here. Let that sit for a second. A great plan on paper only works if you can follow through with it with consistent behavior. Okay. It's like everybody knows the right thing to do is train more. So if we think of it in a basketball perspective, every basketballer since Michael Jordan to LeBron James knows practice, practice, practice is the way forward. But it's LeBron and MJ and those guys that actually put in the relentless work and keep their focus and outwork everyone consistently that get the results. It's not like a secret sauce that doing the right thing or training or working harder is there, but it's the ones who can consistently achieve it. Because your actions are going to be what defines your success and your results. It's easy to think that more money going to Australia is going to fix things or just the better strategy. But what truly matters is how you manage it and manage what you already have. Because it's not about being perfect. It's about being the best that you can be, the soonest that you can be it. Now, some of the things that we know can have a detrimental impact is that on average, Kiwis are frittering away about 15% of their income. And it's these things that are here on the screen. Now, if we had another poll right now, we won't do it because I know the answers will be 100%. If we could all get a 15% pay rise tomorrow, we would be taking it. All right. And these are the areas that happen the most. The sneaky culprit, I would call it, is those extra trips to the supermarket. Just that one thing, or just those few little things on the list. I had clients that are going 5, 6, 7 times a week, blowing their budget by $300, $400 a week. And it's the correlation between my clients that overspend in that area when they first come to us and the ones that have a decent sort of number in their natural tendency in that specific area. It's the ones who go multiple times are the ones that have the worst habits coming in. So we need to get rid of those habits as quickly as possible. Reevaluating some of those subscriptions. Big one at the moment around bank fees is PayWave. Great for speed in terms of transacting and just tapping and going. But now with technology, we're able to be, passed on those 1-2% surcharges. Might look like nothing. You might be like, oh, whatever, it's 30 cents here, 40 cents there. If you do 3-4 transactions over a day, it could be a couple of bucks. If you're transacting 365 days a year, or even 300 days of the year, that's $600, $700 for the same items. And all it takes is pushing, 5 buttons, hitting check and your 4-digit PIN. Like, our laziness will cost us thousands of dollars, and this is where we see it at Enable Me with clients before they come to us, and this is what we get them to improve on. Now, again, it doesn't always come back to money. For the other 50% of people that answered those other 4 areas, there's other bigger reasons. And I agree wholeheartedly, having done this. It'd be contradicting myself if I didn't say it was great moving overseas to experience things like a different culture or better weather or just restless feet, okay? So these things are right for you if that's how you feel, okay? If you are still, you know, in that mindset of I might be doing this, make sure, I guess, if you're doing it for those reasons that aren't purely financial, probably is still good to make sure you've got your finances in order before you get that big boost in pay from moving overseas. But that last point really is the one I want to touch on or finish on this slide, is moving purely for financial reasons can have its flaws, okay? Make sure you understand the details of that move and what you're really going to walk away with. Because regardless, like I said, money and what we earn doesn't matter as much as our mindset. Make sure, I guess these are the key takeaways I want you to take away with. Set those goals. You know, goals are that, like I said, that map to get you to where you need to be. Behaviors are going to shape the outcomes. Okay, it's what's steering you towards your financial future. And the big one, I guess, the key takeaway is location doesn't define success. Financial success isn't going to be tied to a postcode. It's about what you do with what you have. It's not what you earn, it's what you do with it that's going to truly count the most. So a couple of key sort of messages to finish on here is, yeah, a plan, you know, it doesn't have to be limiting. It shouldn't be limiting. It should never be restrictive. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay. You need to celebrate your progress along the way. You know, track your progress, celebrate the wins. Risk is part of that journey. Okay. Taking risks, whether it's moving or investing or whatever it is, you need to understand the ins and outs of it before making the big jump. And you don't have to go this stuff alone. Oh, just jump back for a second there. You know, having sounding boards that are actually not just articles or general in nature, just like today, understanding that there's support out there to make sure that, you know, you have the right network around you, whether it's a financial advisor or whatnot. Together, you can tackle those challenges and plan for the future and make that journey more enjoyable and less daunting. Here's how what we do here at Enable Me. We do that by understanding that starting point, assessing your current situation here in New Zealand, because we don't want you to, I guess, take those New Zealand money problems overseas with you when you're earning more, because you'll just fritter a higher income. We want to make sure that you know, articulate clear financial goals, whether it's getting onto the property ladder, getting debt-free, or, you know, moving overseas for that new adventure, setting the right course so you can enjoy the ride and don't carry over those unresolved issues with you. We want to understand your natural spending and saving tendencies. Okay, we want to find your financial surplus and channel those funds effectively to support your ambitions. We want to design a strategy to grow your wealth. Okay, craft a personalized strategy that aligns to your risk, your goals, your money personalities, whether you're safety ward, an adventurer, etc. Ensure that you can confidently pursue your financial dreams and navigate any storms or speed bumps that come across along the way. And what we can do here is with that soundboard, provide that guidance and motivation throughout that journey. You know, we've got a wealth of experience amongst our team here who've lived in different parts of the world. Myself, obviously, having grown up and lived a lot of my life over in Australia, quantifying what the actual move could look like in more detail. So you're aware of if there is a material gain. For the half of you that are moving purely for that reason, okay, is it actually as much as you think? And if it is, great, let's go and maximize that. Or is it so minimal that you're like, no, I'd rather stay near my sister and my mum and etc. You know, that's what we really are here to make sure, as a trusted sounding board, you are, I guess, as clear as possible with what you can achieve in the here and now, but also your long-term objectives. So in short, we've got an amazing opportunity on the screen here for you to prepare for the future and your adventure, whether you're moving or just want to soundboard your ideas of moving. We've got the QR code and the link on the screen here. Okay, we don't want you to chase that mirage image of yourself. We want you to get the best out of that mirror image and really propel forward. Okay, because moving overseas might seem like the escape, but the grass might not be greener. So the special offer on the screen here is a consultation with myself or one of our coaches at Enable Me. Normally priced at $400. If you do book with the link or the QR code in the next 24 hours, it's down to $149. After that, it's $249 with the code. Okay, so don't miss this opportunity, I guess, to set yourself up for financial success, whether you're staying here, planning to go, want to get an understanding of whether you should or shouldn't go, get in touch. Whether it's myself or someone in the team, we're ready to, get started with you. I'll throw now to my producer who has some Q&A for me.
All right, thanks, Justin. Let's do 3 questions. The first one is, can I transfer my Australian super into my Kiwi saver for a first home purchase in New Zealand?
In short, no, you can't. The Kiwi saver or the Australian super is ring fenced until you're 67, even when you're over here. So it's a different retirement age in Australia and might catch up by the time some of us are 67. But yeah, it's actually locked in until then and can't be used. So that's that's something that's different over there that I might not have touched on earlier. Is Australians actually just have to fully save their deposit. They can't use their super for their first home purchase. And then the same when you come back with that super, if you want to transfer it back to your KiwiSaver fund, it sort of gets ring fenced.
Right. The second question is there a best time in life to make a move? And how does age affect whether it is a good idea to move overseas financially?
Look, it's a hard one to answer because I don't know, obviously, the person asking the question. If you're moving purely for financial reasons, I don't know if age matters too much there. I think the important thing to note is, if you're doing it for experiences, it's now whenever's the right time. If you're doing it financially, it might be possibly more difficult if you're doing it older in life as well. Like if you're moving over to Australia, say in your 60s, and you don't have a solid KiwiSaver behind you, you're behind the 8 ball because a lot of your Australian counterparts the same age probably have massive super balances, north of $500,000. I think, I don't have the statistics in front of me for what the super balances compared to KiwiSaver balances are. But yeah, it's probably just depends a little bit on your rationale or the reasons why. But I think answered in short, it's probably just get in touch with someone to understand your situation a little bit more detailed. Any others? There's a couple have come through that I might quickly cover off. Someone asked, what challenges did you face when moving to London from Melbourne? I think they're asking. Look, it was many years ago. So it was a culture change, definitely, and obviously the weather change. The big thing there is, people are, I found, very, very cutthroat. I think it tends to come with the nature of moving to bigger cities. So I moved from Melbourne to London, and you might be moving from a smaller city to Melbourne. That sheer size jump in the size of your city, it's great, don't get me wrong, but you do feel a little bit like there's no one there to help you. So that was probably the biggest thing and one of the biggest challenges. And then just any of the culture shock stuff. What are some of the things that are expensive compared to in New Zealand? One probably big one to look at is, I know petrol prices tend to be something that we look over there in envy on, but sometimes car registration and other costs like that can creep up. Some other sort of things, as I was saying before, with great public transport or great road network, some of those things are tolled. Okay, so yeah, there could be some tolls. A lot of it I noticed recently similar-ish, so not massively more expensive compared to here, but I definitely felt that the gap when you converted the Aussie dollar price to New Zealand dollars when you were over there wasn't, drastically cheaper. So yeah, that's in short, probably not anything way more expensive over there, other than the fact that, yeah, the petrol savings you might make on a weekly or fortnightly basis gets you when it comes time for car registration. That was a big thing that I noticed. Final one is, got another one that's popped into here around super. Should you transfer it into or keep paying into super or transfer it over to your KiwiSaver? Again, this is one probably to talk to a financial advisor on, just to get a sense for what your KiwiSaver is doing in comparison to your Australian super. Yeah, it really can vary. Again, talking generally, because I have throughout the evening on average, the Australian super funds do tend to outperform the New Zealand ones. Reason being is because it's compulsory, the amounts they've got to invest and what they're investing in, they've got bigger pools. And that's, I think, linked to why their performance over a 30-year trajectory tends to or over whatever scales the different metrics are using tend to come up higher. But for whoever's asking sort of that question, I would make sure you're asking for your specific scenario. There's different tools, whether it's if you're coming in to see us, we can have a bit of a look at what your KiwiSaver is doing. And then, yeah, there's some tools out there to see what your Australian super is doing and making sure it's one of the top performers over there. It might be worth staying, it might not. Look, that's probably all we've got time for. I think we might have just run about our course for the hour. Look, main thing, I guess, key message is about looking internally and working out the best version of yourself. Understanding, there's a lot of articles out there and a lot of noise, but get in touch with someone, whether it's myself using the QR code and the link on the screen, or one of our team, or yeah, just get ahead with your situation. You need to get in front of somebody and talk about your specific scenario. Really enjoyed tonight and hope you have too. And yeah, hopefully looking forward to seeing you all in the future.